Brought to you by Atlassian, AI-powered collaboration software that makes the impossible possible.
Hello, listeners. I'm Brendan Vaughn, Editor-in-Chief of Fast Company. Before we get to today's episode, I wanted to tell you about an exclusive deal on Fast Company Premium. This gives you full access to everything Fast Company has to offer. We publish dozens of subscriber-only articles every month, taking readers deep inside the companies driving innovation. You'll also get every story we publish in the print magazine, my Sunday morning premium newsletter, and soon, access to Fast Company journalists at subscriber-only virtual events. If you sign up right now at fastcompany.offer, it's only $19.99 for a full year of coverage. That's a 40% savings on the annual subscription price. For more details, go to fastcompany.com/offer or follow the link in the show notes.
Brought to you by Williams. We make clean energy happen.
Welcome to another special episode of Most Innovative Companies. Joining me again is Mansueto Ventures CEO and Chief Content Officer, Stephanie Mehta. Just a note for some of our listeners, Mansueto Ventures is the parent company of Inc. and Fast Company. Hey, Stephanie, welcome back.
Thanks, Yaz.
You recently moderated a panel as part of a series called Fast Forward at One Madison. You spoke with Krishna Bhagavathula, the Chief Technology Officer and Executive Vice President of the NBA. What did you two talk about?
Well, I'd love to answer your question, Yaz, but for starters, let me just provide a little bit of context. So this speaker series is a partnership between Fast Company and IBM, and we bring together a group of select tech and design luminaries, and I've had the pleasure of doing those interviews. And as you noted, our second guest was the CTO of the NBA, and we chatted about how the NBA uses technology to delight fans, how they strike the right kind of partnerships with their tech partners, and the surprising ways they're analyzing data. I kicked off the conversation by asking him to describe his role at the NBA.
In a nutshell, I'm responsible for setting and executing the technology strategy at the league and the 30 teams. Everything we do to support our ecosystem of the other leagues as well. It's beyond the NBA. We are the WNBA. It's the NBA 2K League. It's the G League and the Basketball Africa League. So essentially supporting the technology strategy across this ecosystem of leagues, if you will. And in a nutshell, I mean, if you want me to describe my role or my responsibilities, it's maybe best summarized through my department's mission statement. It's just one sentence. It's drive innovation through technology to empower staff, delight fans, and safeguard the brand. So that's what I'm responsible for.
All right, well, I want to talk about the fans. Who here is an NBA fan?
Okay.
Yeah, got some fans. WNBA fans?
Ooh.
All right, we're going to get to the WNBA in a minute. How do we use technology at the NBA to delight fans?
So, great question.
Krishna, can I ask you to put your mic a little closer to your mouth so everybody can hear you? Thanks.
Hopefully you can hear me now. Okay. So, delighting fans. So first and foremost, it's a vehicle for us to take our product and share it with our fans. I mean, a great stat that I like to start with that actually keeps us grounded is that 99% of our fans will never set foot in an arena. So we have 99% of our fans are never going to watch a live NBA game. So which means that we are going to be relying on technology to deliver the product to them. The other stat is that we have an incredibly diverse and young audience. Our fans are amongst the youngest fans in sports. Certainly across U.S. sports, we have the youngest demographic. They're also incredibly tech savvy. Just another stat, right? About half of our fans are 34 or below. So we have to take an extremely deliberate multimodal and multi-platform strategy. We have to make sure that our product is available to our fans on the platforms that they are consuming content on, whether it's Snap or Insta or TikTok or YouTube. We want to make sure that our content is available on those platforms. It goes beyond traditional, linear TV or cable. We want to make sure that we are available on digital platforms. We have a product called League Pass, which is essentially an NBA app, which is available on over 18 platforms. And that's really how we distribute our content across our fan base. Hopefully that gives you a broad strokes answer.
So is the idea for the technology experience to replicate the live in-arena experience, or is it designed to be something completely different?
To replicate as much as possible. So we have, again, optionality is key. There are some fans who want to watch a game on their own terms. And let me explain what I mean by that. So obviously you have the quote-unquote traditional group of fans that are watching a game on a 10-foot screen or a TV. So we want to make sure that that's available, that content is available to them. There are some fans who are maybe want to watch the results across 4 different games that are on at the same time. So we actually have a feature which we are calling multi-view, which allows you to watch 4 simultaneous games on one screen. And that's by design. There's a little bit of content overload, but there's also other dynamics that come into play. Betting, for instance. I don't know how many of you have bet on games, but that's certainly a segment of our audience, and we want to make sure that we are creating an experience that's engaging to that segment of audiences as well. There's a customizable element on the content as well. You can actually watch a live stream, and then you can do replays on demand while watching it. If you have the League Pass app, essentially you can, at any point in the live stream, you can actually do your own custom replays. If you are watching a game after it has been played, you have different options. You can say, summarize the game in 10 minutes for me, and we're going to show you a 10-minute segment of the game. You can say, show me the game from the perspective of all possessions made by Team A, and we'll show you that experience as well. You can say, show me key highlights, and we'll show you that experience as well. So optionality is something that we have thought deeply about, and that's how we have built the product.
So without getting too much into the weeds, because I know we have a mix of technologists in the room, but also people who are not deep into technology or not technologists themselves, what are the tools that enable this? What are the things that you have deployed as part of the NBA's technology stack that enable you to give that audience or fan member that optionality?
So first and foremost, from a technology standpoint, we've taken a best-of-breed approach. We have taken a first principles approach to building the product. We've broken it down into core functions that we think are essential across the board. We have built like a service-oriented or a componentized architecture that preserves the integrity of those services. And we have built platforms on top of that. Number 2 is we have taken a cloud-first approach. We think that as we build products out in the cloud, we'll have, again, maximum optionality in terms of integrating them with cutting-edge tech or tech that's emerging, and that'll just make it easier for us to keep the product current. So we've taken that approach. Thirdly, we've been very thoughtful about the kind of partnerships that we have struck with tech partners. I'll just give you an example. During the pandemic, we struck a partnership with Microsoft. And 18 months later, we rolled out the reimagined NBA League Pass app. Again, that was because they shared our vision for what we wanted to do around the product. We felt that they came in with the expertise and the tech that enabled us to strike that partnership, and we went ahead and struck that deal. But that's not the only partnership, right? It's not just one partnership. It's just an example. We have taken a similar approach across several technology partners and been very deliberate in terms of constantly upgrading our tech. I firmly believe that we are never done. We've got to evolve with our fans and their content consumption habits, and we've got to be constantly out there upgrading the app.
You mentioned the pandemic, and I think we all remember the empty stadiums during the pandemic. What role did that period of time play in accelerating the deployment of technology at the NBA that tried to, as you say, sort of replicate the live experience?
So firstly, I think when the pandemic hit, right, I mean, much like many of you here, we had the tech, whether it is video conferencing or whiteboarding tools or messaging tools, right? Adoption was an issue because, historically we had segments of the workflows that had not adapted to those tools. But once the pandemic hit, it forced people to adapt to those tools. And once people adopted those tools, I think it was normalized to some degree, right? I mean, you're like, okay, you know what? This is the way we're going to be doing business. So let's figure out what we can do in terms of driving innovation using these tools. So switching gears to your question in terms of how did we respond to the pandemic? In terms of our first objective was bringing the game back. I don't know how many of you remember what we did in Orlando we called it the bubble. So we almost created a clean environment, which consisted of players from the 30 teams and about 2,000 staff in a isolated campus in Orlando. And we essentially brought the games back there. There was a series of technologies that we used to make sure that the right workflows were created so that people could pass those workflows and get access to that environment. Almost everybody in that environment had, essentially had an internet-connected thermometer, a pulse oximeter, a proximity
And that was
sensor.
all your department handled.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, and we use that data to make sure that we were keeping tabs on, who was sick or not and who they had come in contact with.
Well, you mentioned data. What are some of the more interesting pieces of data that the NBA analyzes? I mean, I'm not thinking about scores and statistics about players, but I'm thinking about again, that fan engagement piece. What are some of the pieces of data that people here might be surprised to see or to learn that is important to the NBA?
This season, we've actually, I don't know how many of you have seen this feature, but there's a feature in our app which we are calling the dunk score. So we have used a series of algorithms to essentially assign a score to every dunk that's made when the games are on. It's using a variety of factors, such as the distance the player jumps, the force at the rim. So we're actually measuring the impact or the force at the rim, and also the defensive position that the defending team has taken. And we are combining these to generate a dunk score that we are assigning to every dunk during a game. So I thought that was interesting.
And is there an award that goes to the player that has the highest dunk score? Okay.
Potentially. Yeah.
Do we know who's on the leaderboard?
No, I don't off the top of my head.
Someone here might look it up and tell us.
Yeah. And we intend to use that at All-Star as well. Yeah. At the dunk contest. So that's an interesting one. The other one is, again, I don't know if too many people know about this, but we have an application that we use to train referees, just to improve their performance. We call it Reps. It's essentially, it doesn't sound as glamorous as what we're doing on the consumer front, but this is super important to us because consistency of refereeing and officiating again, just going to improve the credibility of the game. And the transparency, any transparency that we can provide around officiating is, again, super important to us. So we have a system that is used by referees, and there's a set of folks that we call DAs, or development advisors, whose role is essentially to talk to the referees about the referees' performance and give them feedback on calls that they have made, and more importantly, calls that they have potentially not made. So there's this system that they use that captures multiple camera angles of the game, contextualizes it with calls that the referees have made, and then they're using that to provide feedback. So it's almost like, think of it as a cross between a viewing application and also a social media app where you can actually take content snippets, provide your content comments on it, and then share it with other DAs or referees and say that, hey, by the way, you missed this call. You got to pay closer attention to these kind of calls next time. And we have seen that that's actually improved engagement and performance of referees.
G'day, we're Atlassian. We make team collaboration software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, which power enterprise businesses around the world, including 83% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian, you'll unlock AI-powered teamwork, which means more time doing the work that matters. In fact, our customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. So you'll have more time to listen to podcasts. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. That's Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
As clean, reliable energy demand increases at historic rates, one company is uniquely positioned to accelerate America forward. Williams. We have 116 years of know-how in powering progress, and we're ready to power the next 100 years of innovation. Learn how our natural gas infrastructure is critical to power the future of AI and electrification at Williams.com.
Very cool. It's notable that the NBA owners are a particularly tech-savvy bunch. I mean, Steve Ballmer, the former CEO of Microsoft, owns the Clippers. Joe Tsai owns the Brooklyn Nets. I saw Brooklyn jerseys. The former Alibaba executive. A lot of venture capitalists in NBA. What kind of pressure does that put on your department when your owners know a lot about tech?
Well, they're opinionated for sure. Well, I mean, it's actually, I actually think it's great. And I'll say it's great because, I mean, it's not unlike any other public boards, right, where the board's job is to essentially challenge status quo and make sure that they are pressure testing any decisions that you're making or any proposals that you're seeking approval for. I think the uniqueness here is that they're all incredibly successful leaders and entrepreneurs who are running very large or successful enterprises of their own, that they bring a unique perspective, and we feed off of that. So we take a lot of input from our owners because it's helpful for us. At the end of the day, the way to look at it is our board of governors or the owners have a vested interest in the success of the league. So often they come forth with really great suggestions that we can run with and we can execute on. So I as much as it's a little bit, of course, naturally there's some pressure, but I also think there's a lot more positives that come out of that interaction.
And I would highly recommend that anybody who has a chance to go to the Intuit Dome, please check out the Steve Cam, which is the Steve Ballmer camera that focuses on him like dancing in the middle of the games.
And it's just a data explosion, by the way. Just talking about the Halo board at the Intuit Dome, it's just filled with so many interesting data nuggets. It actually captures the speed at which the players are going up and down the court. It actually shows the number of miles that the referees have run on the court. It's just, data explosion.
And that's they collect that data.
Yes.
So that's their own technology.
Yes, they have sensors up in the rafters that are actually measuring how players are going up and down, how many times the Clippers have executed a certain play, for instance. That's something that's displayed there. It's just amazing.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
Yeah.
The other owners have to match it.
Yeah.
Before we go to questions from the audience, you talked about that ecosystem within the league. WNBA is obviously having an incredible moment right now. Hopefully not just a moment, but an incredible trajectory. Tell us a little bit about the relationship between the NBA and the WNBA, and particularly what kind of technological support or partnerships you have with the WNBA.
Sure. By the way, firstly, I think Kathy Engelbert, who's the commissioner of the WNBA, has been incredible. I think she's taken the league to really new heights over the last 3-4 years that she's been with us. We work extremely closely with the WNBA. So my team, again, speaking about my team and what we do from a technology standpoint, the support that we provide is very similar to what I and my team do for the NBA. Everything from internal tech to player-facing tech to league operations, those are things that we support. In terms of the WNBA League Pass, that's actually a different product that they have built through another third party, and that's what they use. But outside of that experience, everything else around their ecosystem is something that we support, including the data and the analytics that they use around their app.
Great. Let's open it up to questions. I think we have some mic runners. Let's start here in the front row, and then we'll do a couple questions here and then over there. If you could just tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, David Hill from the Upper West Side. I'm a yoga teacher. I have a question. Artificial intelligence, any projects you're planning with that? Any ideas you have about that?
Yeah, we do. So several, I'll talk very quickly about maybe 2 or 3 examples. First, the NBA has for years been using what we are calling traditional AI on a variety of fronts, including ball tracking. We have every arena has about 12 HD cameras, high frame rate cameras that are capturing content at about 800 frames a second, and we are plotting out the XYZ coordinates of the ball and the players. All of that content is going through machine learning systems, and we are running heuristics on it to essentially, we have taught a machine the game of basketball, and we are extracting stats from it. So that's the traditional AI part of it, which we have been doing for a few years now. From a Gen AI standpoint, again, going back to the app, we rolled out a feature this year, a couple of months ago. It's called NBA Insights. So essentially what we're doing is when a live game is in progress, we're using the stats from the game, the live stats, and we are generating insights from those stats and creating almost like conversational interface with the fans who are viewing the game through the app. There's other Gen AI experiences that we have worked on as well. There's an Ask NBA, which is, if you think about it, it's like a chatbot where you can ask questions and it's going to respond. And we have a few other things that we are planning, but certainly Gen AI is something that we are very invested in.
Gentleman in the second row with the glasses. Then we'll go to this side of the room.
Hello, Sean McKenzie from NYC. What are your guys' plans for VR and AR when we think about NBA, the physicality of sports, how in-depth you can get in with different camera angles? What are your guys' plans for both VR and AR?
Great question. So for the last 4 or 5 years now, including this season, about 60 of our games, 60 plus games, are actually broadcast on VR. So if any of you own the MetaQuest platform or the MetaQuest Pro, you can actually go to the Horizons world in MetaQuest, And then there's another experience. There's another app that's available on Meta called X Stadium. And you can use any of those two platforms within MetaQuest Pro to watch about 60-plus games as a VR experience. And it's incredible. I mean, it's super immersive. If you have friends who are actually have access to the same game, you can actually sit courtside with them, although you're across the country, and watch the game. So that's available today. We also were a launch partner for the Apple Vision Pro. When it launched in February of this year. Actually, by the way, Tim Cook was at our office the day Apple launched the Vision Pro, and the NBA app was a launch partner on Vision Pro as well. So we have an experience on that platform as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
There's a question in the second row on this side. Woman raising her hand.
Hi, I'm Aishwarya, an MBA student at Cornell. So my question is, how does your team balance data privacy when you're driving the personalization for the end users?
Sure. We are, extremely cognizant of data privacy. So, I mean, at a basic level, making sure that we are in compliance with any geographical regulatory requirements, like GDPR, for instance, or the CCPA. We want to make sure that we are compliant with that. Number two is we run frequent audits around our data ecosystem, just to make sure that our processes are all up to snuff and that we have the right security processes, procedures in place. We are in the process of actually going through a SOC 2 Type 2 certification. I don't know how familiar you are with the SOC 2 Type 2 certification, but essentially that's the gold standard in data privacy, and it's a certification that affirmatively says that you have all the right processes in place to preserve the integrity of your data. So yeah.
And that's something you're proactively doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not. We don't need. It's not a regulatory requirement for us, but it's something that is important to us.
Right. We'll take one more question in the back, very back row. Yes, gentleman with the black jacket.
Okay. Hello, my name is Glenn from NYC. You talked about Intuit Dome, right? The new cutting edge arenas that's around the NBA. How important is fan engagement within the arenas, and in terms of, because, like, let's be clear, like a ticket to the NBA game for a family is a pretty penny, right? Especially in transient cities like that. How important is fan engagement in terms of tech and the modern tech you use right now?
You're talking about fan engagement in the arena, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, super important. I mean, here's almost a counterintuitive way for why tech and fan engagement are related. At the Intuit Dome, every seat in the arena has power at the seats. And the rationale for that is to keep people in their seats. The Intuit Dome also has twice or the number of bathrooms or restrooms as any other NBA arena. Again, purely by design, because Steve Ballmer wants to make sure that people spend as little time waiting in lines at the restrooms, and they're back on the seat and watching the games. Also ordering from your seats so that you can actually get F&B delivered to your seat. That's, again, super important, because that's actually going to preserve your engagement with the game, and you don't have to wait in line at the concession stand. So these are all the kind of things that our owners are thinking about when they're designing or building new arenas.
I want to thank our colleagues and friends at IBM for hosting us, and thank you all for being here. Please join us for some networking, and thank you, Krishna. Have a great night.
Thank you. It was a blast. Thanks.
That's all for this special episode of Most Innovative Companies. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe.